Good evening. I'd like to call the meeting to order and welcome to the Planning Board meeting for March 17th, 2008, and happy St. Patrick's Day to everyone. We have three different matters scheduled for public hearing this evening. The first one is 1782 Middlesex Street, which was continued from our last meeting, being March 3rd of '08, and the matter was continued over to have the plans addressed with Division of Planning and Development to see if they could pick up some more open space and some landscaping plan. And this is 1782 Middlesex Street. The Lowell Planning Board will hold a public hearing to all interested persons relative to the application by Basil and Joanne Canasavis for a site plan review for the project located at the above address. The project proposes to raise two existing buildings currently on site, one building operating a beauty salon, the other is a single-family home. Redevelopment of the site includes a 7,500 square foot commercial building and 19-space parking lot. The commercial building will hold 5 storefronts, each approximately 1,200 square feet in size. The project is located in the Regional Retail Zoning District and requires site plan review under Section 11.4 of the Lowell Zoning Ordinance. Let me hear the case by the applicant, please.
Mr. Chairman, I'm Attorney James Hall, and we were here 2 weeks ago, as you had noted, and had gone over in great detail with the plans with our engineer, Mr. Clausen. And I think it kind of zeroed in on parking and green space and trees and things of that nature. And we've had a very productive 2 weeks where we've met with Mr. Clausen. I'd like to introduce Ronnie and have him come back up, and maybe he can have a dialogue with Mr. Clausen and convince the board that we've done some good things these past 2 weeks.
What I'd like to do is I'll hear from Mr. Close first, and then I'll ask if we can hear from Aaron from our associate planner to see what he has, any comments that were brought up by Mr. Close, if that's acceptable. Okay? Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Close.
For the record, my name's Ron Close. I'm the engineer on the project. There was some outstanding issues, mainly in the landscape architect field, and issues with the parking. We believe we've made the adjustments. We did meet with your representative, Mr. Clausen, and your landscape architect earlier last week. I believe we worked those issues out. Other than specific questions, I think I can address them if and when you ask.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Close. Anybody else want to be here on behalf of the applicant? Okay. Let me ask Aaron a couple of questions first before we proceed. Aaron, I know indicated that we did receive a report from yourself as an associate planner from Division of Planning and Development, indicated that you did have the opportunity to sit down with Diane Trad, which is our design planner, and yourself and Mr. Close, and you gave us a memo to that effect. Or anything you'd like to add for the record in regards to the meeting and the new set of plans?
Sure, yeah, I can do that. We received updated plans from the applicant, and basically they added another landscaping island inside the parking area to address 6.1.9 of the zoning code. And essentially that landscape island addressed that issue. They now have adequate amount of landscaping, and the spacing is very near what they need to do with 50 feet apart from each tree. Some other things we did talk about in the meeting, and the applicant can confirm this or not, they seemed amenable to the idea of moving the sidewalk from being right adjacent to Wood Street, bringing it in and creating a landscape buffer between Wood and the pedestrian. And this was something that I know that the board had expressed interest in. And from a DPD staff point of view, we like the idea of doing that to create a little bit of buffer between the pedestrian, create a nicer environment for them as they're walking down the street, hopefully eventually making this more of a pedestrian-oriented environment, and just basically more amenable to that. So essentially what we were able to do was discuss with them beyond that landscape island was adding that buffer along Wood Street and putting in somewhere between 5 or 6 additional trees in that buffer, while keeping the trees back far enough from the corner so that sight distance wasn't reduced for vehicles traveling along Wood and Middlesex. So we didn't want to reduce the safety for vehicles, but still increase the landscaping a little bit there. So there seemed to be interest from the applicant to go ahead and do so.
Thank you. Anybody here like to speak in favor of the project? In favor of the project? In favor? In favor? Hearing none. Anybody here like to speak in opposition?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, my name is Kevin Murphy. I represent Assad Maroon, 1776 Middlesex Street, who is a direct abutter to this proposed development. First of all, I'd like to explain to you why we were not here on March 3rd for the original meeting. My client was informed by the petitioner, who was out of country at that time, that when he returned from out of country, he would sit down with my client and go over some of the concerns that my client had and would resolve those concerns with him. Therefore, he didn't have to appear at the March 3rd meeting. Well, to our knowledge and belief, the petitioner returned from out of country on March 8th and has not contacted my client since then to resolve any of the concerns that we have relative to this proposed development. So that is why we are appearing here this evening for the first time. We expected that we would sit down and talk to him, but we haven't been afforded that opportunity. So we're here this evening strongly in opposition to this proposed development. First of all, I don't have to explain to the astute members of this board the criteria for site plan review. You're well aware of it. I have reviewed it in depth along with the zoning code relative to the city of Lowell, and I just want to point out a couple of issues that I think really call for this site plan review to be denied as presented. First of all, living in the Highlands and having a law office near this proposed development, I know everybody says this, but it's probably the most congested intersection in the city of Lowell. This is situated right at the corner of Wood and Middlesex Street, just before the Rourke Bridge. Right across the street from this proposed development is the Market Basket, Osco Drug, and other type of venues selling different wares and goods. As you can well imagine, anybody in the Highlands avoids this intersection from 4 o'clock on, and there's a reason for it. There are people coming from Route 3 through the Drum Hill Rotary all the way down onto Wood Street trying to get over the Rourke Bridge. There are people coming up Middlesex Street trying to get on to the Rourke Bridge. And there are people coming from Vinyl Square trying to get either onto the Rourke Bridge or through Middlesex Street. The traffic is absolutely incredible in the late afternoon hours from 4 o'clock on. I have reviewed their site plan, and I'd like to point out a couple of issues that I have with the site plan. First of all, the parking plan is woefully inadequate. First of all, they propose 19 spaces for this 5-unit strip mall. Now, the 19 spaces are based upon those units being office spaces, and that's how they get into the 19 units. I have not seen any leases that have been presented to you or the Division of Planning and Development that would show that each unit would be occupied by office spaces, calling for 19 parking spaces. I have been informed that it would be the building inspector, that when a certificate of occupancy is issued, that the building inspector would be required to make sure that they were office spaces, and therefore complying with the 19 spaces. Query: what if the occupancy permit is issued? 3 months later, the office is gone. In a takeout Chinese food restaurant or a takeout pizza facility locates in that space. The parking requirements now double compared to what is proposed under this proposal. It is a very, very hard job for the building inspector to have to monitor each and every business as it changes in this development. My suggestion is what you're doing, if you approve this site plan with the minimum parking requirements of 19 spaces, is not a good thing for the safety and general welfare of the public of the city of Lowell. You should probably look at imposing the more restrictive parking requirements of the highest and best use of this proposal. Second, as I look at the parking as proposed on this site plan, it's very poorly configured. Look at the two handicap spots. They are at the far end of the proposal, two of them. They are up by unit number 1 by Middlesex Street. God help any one of those handicapped persons that has to go down to unit number 5, which is so far away down the end of the development. Second, 3 of these parking spaces are right along the border of this proposal near Wood Street. So you're going to have 16 parking spots right along the strip mall. You're going to have 3 here. You're going to have people walking in between of them, and you're going to have people backing up and going forward with 3 parking spots over here. This is a very, very bad configuration for parking at this spot. It is specific in the site plan review process that a petitioner must show a snow storage area on the plan. Now, there's a legitimate reason for this. In my own law office where I have, we must have lost 12 spaces this winter because of snow being piled up and eliminating probably 12 parking spots. In this site plan, there is no snow storage area whatsoever shown. There is a note that says, excess snow to be removed from the site. Nobody has told you where that snow is going to be removed to. And we all know you can't dump it in the Merrimack River anymore. It's specific in your site plan regulations that you have to show that snow storage removal, that snow storage area right on the plan, and there is no indication of that on their plan. Third, as you know, under site plan review, the petitioner must show and he must provide adequate access for fire and services equipment. I ask you to look at the plan, and it's quite obvious that my client's building in this proposed strip mall will be 10 feet apart. Not only will it be 10 feet apart from my client's building, but it will be 5 to 10 feet apart from residential structures that it abuts. Now, right now, if there was a fire at my client's building, or if there was a fire at the adjacent residential lot, there would be access for the Lowell Fire Department to come in and get to the rear of either our building or the residential structure to fight any fire that occurred there. If you allow this building to be constructed, you can look at it and you can see that there will be absolutely no access for public safety, especially the fire department, to access my client's building or the residential structures completely adjacent to it for any type of fire emergency. Another criteria of site plan review is to maximize pedestrian and vehicular safety on the site, to the site, and egressing from it. Now, if you look at the plan, there are two means of access and egress to the site. First of all, you have the access and egress from Wood Street. Now, I don't know if you've ever driven down Wood Street, but driving down Wood Street from Drum Hill, there are two lanes, and the traffic is coming down from Drum Hill, trying to get over the Rourke Bridge. On the other side are people coming out of Market Basket, Osco Drug, Papagino's, and the rest of the venues in that plaza. So if somebody was trying to exit this particular development, they would have to come out Wood Street, cross two paths of traffic rushing towards the Rourke Bridge, and then getting to another line of traffic coming off the Rourke Bridge, rushing to Drum Hill. Surely that's a public safety issue. Now let's look at the other means of access and egress from this particular development, and that's on Middlesex Street. If you were coming down Middlesex Street, you'd have to take a left into this area, and again, you're getting all of that traffic coming off the Rourke Bridge, taking a left onto Middlesex Street, trying to get to the Highland section of Lowell. You've got all of that traffic coming from Vinyl Square, rushing towards the Highland section of Lowell. A very, very dangerous, dangerous opportunity for anybody. And finally, I have been talking and asking questions in the neighborhood for the last week. And as many of you know, that there was a proposal, or at least there was a trial balloon floated, to have a Walgreens or some type of drugstore locate across the street from this particular development. And the Highlands Neighborhood Association was adamantly opposed to that particular proposal, and well, they should have been, because the traffic was absolutely horrendous already, and a proposal such as that would have just exacerbated the situation. I suggest to you that this petitioner has never approached anyone in the Highlands Neighborhood Association to talk to them about what this proposal means and how it would affect the quality of life of those people living in the Highlands. And I think that should be addressed before this site plan review is ever considered to be approved. So in summary, there are numerous issues that I think call for this plan, at a minimum, to be continued, for the petitioner to sit down with my client to discuss these issues, to sit down with the neighborhood association to discuss what impact this will have on the quality of life for the Highlands neighborhood, and then maybe come back here today, someday in the future, with some type of proposal to either scale down this proposal, move it out so it's not so close to my client's property, and to expand the parking regulations so that it fits in with the neighborhood and it addresses all of the issues relative to site plan review. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Attorney Murphy. Anyone else like to speak in opposition? In opposition? In opposition, hearing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. Any of the board members have any comments or concerns?
I have a couple.
Yes. Mr. Lockhart, I'll start with you if you don't mind.
Regarding the handicap parking, it did seem to me that those two spaces were a little bit far away from the you know, the entrances to the businesses. Can you comment on that, and would you be willing to move them around a little bit to make it?
That can be easily done.
Pardon me?
That could be easily done to,
I mean, they're way off in the corner. And
Yes,
it
sir.
doesn't serve us.
we can
that.
move one down toward the southerly end of the project
Okay.
and just make some adjustments in the current parking. That island area there that you see on the southerly section of the building, that's the bottom. I don't know if you have the plan in front of you. But
Yeah,
on the southerly end of the building, there is a green island with 2 trees, and on the northerly end, there's also a green island with 2 to 3 trees in it. So there can be some adjustments made in that to pick up any additional footage for the
Yeah,
handicap.
I think they should be relocated.
Yes, sir, that's something we can,
Right.
Just a comment on that, Member Lockhart. We also discussed with the applicant, when we met with him, that the parking, the handicap parking should be van accessible. Right now, it's got a 5-foot striping. They should have an 8-foot striping to make it accessible for vans. And there is space there to do that. It's just a matter of kind of moving around things. So
right.
they understand that it's something that they need to address, and I think there is room to just swap those around. It does make sense to bring it to the front.
Okay, and as far as the rest of the parking is concerned, I believe the code states that you need 1 space for every 400 square feet of floor space, which brings the requirement just under 19 parking spaces. So as the code is written, I believe they meet that. And certainly, we're always looking for more than that because there's never enough. But from a code standpoint, I do think that they meet it. I just want to make a comment about this intersection itself. And there's been other proposals before the planning board in this general area that, and the same question comes up, the same concern about traffic and congestion. We all know that it's congested. I want to point out that on my time at serving on the Northern Middlesex Council of Governments, that body has recognized this intersection in the city of Lowell as one that really needs study, and they had it on their agenda to do that. I don't know where it stands today, but maybe we can get an update, Aaron, from them, or through Jerry or something, to find that out, because, you know, in my opinion, this is a pretty good development, and it certainly dresses up the corner, and we all face congestion and traffic problems, and we just have to learn how to deal with them better. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Lockhart. Mr. Fischett, any questions or concerns?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, a couple things. First of all, the way these plans show the sidewalk, and I know, Aaron, when you met with the petitioner, they were amenable to putting in some sort of a buffer. I'm just, as I look at these plans, and I'm trying to see where the sidewalk lies versus the lot lines, and how much space we actually have to work with. In your discussions, do we have any idea what, I mean, it looks like you've got 6 foot of sidewalk, and then it looks like there's some dead space, and then you've got the buffer showing for the parking area that I still have a hard time to see how that's all going to lay out between Wood Street and in the parking lot.
Currently, there's a concrete sidewalk that extends down Middlesex Street and rounds the corner to about within 10 to 15 feet of a driveway opening. Within 10 to 15 feet, that's just a mulched area. Then it extends for, I don't have the other plan with me, but if I remember correctly, approximately 20 feet or so of driveway opening, and then it begins a bituminous sidewalk that extends down the street to a second opening, which is approximately, I believe, 12 feet. On on Wood Street. Then there's a 5-foot sidewalk area, and then an additional approximately 20 feet. Without the plan in front of me, I'm just winging that, but there are 3 openings is what I'm saying, 3 access from Wood Street. The plan is to close down 2 of those accesses and to complete a sidewalk with just the granite curbing, by the way. It is granite curbing throughout. To adjust the granite curbing with the proper slopes for access easement throughout that area. That area that you see that's approximately 20 feet wide from the back of sidewalk in was thought to be an area that we could dress up with trees and/or shrubs. We've talked it over with your landscape architect. There's concerns on line of sight. At this time, I guess we're going to cut down the amount of trees in that area so the proper line of sight can be maintained. But it will be minus the existing ingress-egress access area. We're going to remove that driveway area. We've talked it over with Mr. Clausen, and I guess we're going to adjust the sidewalk. I'm going to submit another plan to him with an adjusted sidewalk in the area that's going to show a green area towards the street with the sidewalk sitting approximately 5 to 10 feet back, depends on what your DPD, planning development, wants in that area. So we'll make the adjustments. I would like to do it as a progress plan. I didn't have any problems with addressing that issue with them, with your department. And so we left it that I would bring in a progress plan to them for that adjustment. So that would be at the construction part, so we give you people exactly what you want in the area of the sidewalks.
Mr. Close, now, Attorney Murphy brought up an interesting point regarding the removal of the snow. Typically, even if there's very limited snow storage capacity on the site, there is a spot.
Yes,
ideally, when it snows that next day, they're not out there with a dump truck and a payloader to load it on there. It ends up being plowed and somewhere on the site, and then when the excess capacity is not there anymore, you have to remove it. What is the plan? Again, I don't foresee getting 8 inches of snow, and the next day a dump truck is there with a front end loader to get rid of this. So
I will indicate on the plan a snow storage. It'll probably be along Wood Street. There's enough room all the way along that Wood Street area from the back of the sidewalk to where the driveway area will be, the parking area. So from the back of the berm of the driveway area till the back of the sidewalk, we could store snow in that area.
I'm sorry, would that be towards the location with the dumpster in this direction, towards the boundary of the site? Or
You're going to stay with snow removal?
3, 4.
Okay. Well, they'll stay with the snow removal. They're going to remove it from site.
From a practical matter, you understand what I'm saying, right? I mean, it's
Right.
typically not 6 inches of snow and a dump truck and a payloader show up.
Okay, so then I'd ask you to address that.
You've got some questions with it's a tough one.
I think basically the question was going to be, where's the snow going to be stored until it's trucked off-site?
Temporarily, yeah.
Is that what it is, Mr. Fisher?
Yes, that's
Right.
correct.
Usually, if they're going to take it off-site, you don't come in with a bulldozer and pick it all up and put it in the dump truck and take it off. You usually plow it into a corner, let it accumulate in the corner, pile it up, then you come up, take it there, put it in the truck and tuck it off-site.
Right,
Is that
I'm
correct?
saying
Okay.
at the back of the, from the back of the sidewalk into the back of the driveway and/or parking area, there's a minimum of 15 feet We're going to put some trees along there, but surely in between that time, snow could be stored there till the removal of said snow.
And would that be in the path, and I'm sorry, I have a hard time visualizing,
If you-
would that be in the path where you would get to the dumpster?
No, that would be, you see a driveway opening, 25-foot driveway opening?
Yes.
Okay, just above that, it says south 16 degrees, 03 minutes, 13 minutes west. That is the actual line. That is the property line.
Right.
So from that point into the solid black line, just to the right of that, if you're looking at the plan, or in an easterly direction, is the back of the parking area. There's 15 feet in there that snow could be temporarily stored. We're not going to have that amount of trees, so I don't think it's going to affect the trees.
Well, one of the concerns I have is the reason you're not gonna have that amount of trees is because there was concern about the sight line.
Right.
And if that's your spot to temporarily store snow, I suspect there could be situations where it would be difficult to see trying to pull out of there.
What I'm saying
Not
is
an
that
ideal
they
situation.
will more than likely push it in that direction. I don't, it's not really going to be a snow storage area. It's going to be a holding area until they arrive with the equipment. Or any one of those spaces, we have one extra space. We have 19 spaces. Any one of those spaces could be picked, except for the handicap. Pick out one of those spaces and pile it there until such time as the equipment arrives. It's just a speculation on my part, but I mean, I imagine I'd work out a system in that order.
See, one of the concerns I have, Mr. Close, and I think at the last meeting, and we talked about obviously the landscape, but if you recall, I said that in this particular case, less may be more.
Yes, sir, and I believe we addressed that with Mr.
But,
Ross and
I think it was really taking a look at the big picture, taking a look at the size of the building. Again, it's a great opportunity. I think it's a great site. I like what you're trying to do here. But once again, we're looking at a situation where, and I think I went on to say, you restrict businesses from succeeding. You basically restrict the type of business you can put in there. So even from an economic standpoint, it does limit the tenants that you can have. And it can cut into the very viability of the strip mall. And, you know, looking for a waiver on the loading dock, the loading area, I know we went through that at the last meeting. It was a little unclear whether we had or we didn't. But clearly, if there was less building mass here, we would have not just meeting the spirit of 1.9, but meeting it as well as loading and perhaps even parking in a little bit better snow storage situation before it's removed. So those are some of the concerns. Again, as I said, less may be more on this site, and you know, the reason we put a lot of these things in here, so we end up with really the best functional site possible. You know, having said that, the general design of the building, I certainly like. I think I like what's being attempted here, and I think the egress, I mean, it's a tough situation, but from site plan review, I think, you know, I think that deals with that situation adequately. But I still have issues with the mass of the structure sitting on the site, and then trying to make it a viable, functioning strip mall here. So. In meeting the full aesthetics. And I can appreciate and I really was taking a good look at this site. I can appreciate kind of compensating the buffer and open space between the existing building, the existing dentist office now on Wood Street. But to be honest with you, it really would have been nicer if had this been really come down more and really incorporate what we were looking for in the area that's more visible. And to be honest with you, we could have created even more unity with the other building next to it, and I can understand and I can appreciate you doing that, and certainly that'll add to the aesthetics, but I still have concerns with the way it's presented at this point, but that's all the comments I have at the time.
Thank you, Mr. Fischett. Mr. Gentleman, any questions,
Thank you,
concerns?
Mr. Chairman. Yes. So, Mr. Lockhart referred to the Northern Middlesex County governments having this intersection on their agenda. And indeed, there was a study that was in the Lowell Sun not too long ago showing that rated this intersection as the second worst with regard to accidents in the not just in the city, but in all of Northern Middlesex County. We all know that it's a terrible situation, very congested. And as I said in the last meeting, my biggest concern because of that with this site was the parking. And as Mr. Lockhart pointed out also, it does meet the zoning code for parking if each of the establishments is a retail or service establishment. But indeed, if there's one takeout restaurant that goes in there, then just one out of the 5, then the parking limitation is going to be exceeded. So I thought Mr. Murphy brought up a good point with regard to the permits, because at the last meeting I was told that the way we deal with that is by issuance of occupancy permits. But Aaron, I'll ask you, what indeed does happen if we issue an occupancy permit for a service office, and then 6 months down the road, a Chinese food takeout restaurant goes in there?
Yeah, basically the same thing. Is they would have to go for an occupancy permit. Actually, they'd probably have to, if it was going to be changed into a restaurant, they would need a building permit. So anytime they go for the building permit, they're going to have to fill out the application. And at that time, the building inspector or whoever's working on that case is going to take a look at the tenant mix once again. And, if they don't have enough parking spaces, they don't have enough parking spaces, they can't get the occupancy permit. And if they were going for a restaurant, my guess is that that would be a non-starter. I mean, I think restaurants, there's one space per 100 square feet, and there's clearly not enough for this entire project. So anytime that they change tenants and there's a switch, they're going to have to go for an occupancy permit, and that's when the building inspector is going to be on top of that kind of whether or not the parking's still adequate.
Okay, so anytime there's a change in tenancy, a new occupancy permit has to be issued, the city has to review that, and if there's not enough parking, it's refused. Okay. Still, as my colleague Mr. Frechette pointed out, with regard to the viability of the facility, if you restricting yourself in that way, may make it difficult to make a go of it. Have you approached people who would likely move in there and talked about potential leases or anything like that?
I believe that would be a question for the owner.
Can't approach anybody until we
Just if I could, Ron, if I could address that, Mr. Gendron, we do have the salon operator next door that's presently there and operating. He's going to be moving over into 2,800 square feet. And we expect to have these service people. We have absolutely no intention of putting a restaurant there. You'd be a fool to put it there. It wouldn't work. It would be economically unviable. So I don't ever see that happening. If it did happen...
I'm curious, why would we say that, Mr. Hall? There's a Papagino's across the street, there's a Kentucky Fried
We have no
Chicken, and a
parking.
Taco Bell.
We have no parking.
Exactly.
That's why we wouldn't put it there. Economically, it wouldn't work. If we had the parking, we'd put it there. And I'm sure any one of the neighbors or the abutter that Mr. Murphy's representing, the minute we tried, even though the building inspector was fast asleep, would be calling down to the building department. So that we have to comply with zoning. This is site plan review. It's not special permit, it's not a variance, it's site plan review. We have to comply with zoning. No matter what this board does, we still have to comply with zoning, and we recognize that. And my client's a businessman. He's going to do the best thing for his business, and he's going to put in businesses, hopefully, that will work there. And I would just submit to the board that a restaurant would not work there, and we would not put one there.
Yeah, it certainly wouldn't work due to the parking restrictions, but if there were more parking made available, I would think that would be a great site for a small restaurant or takeout place. I think that you'd have a lot of potential tenants.
I would agree with you, absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
I think that's all the comments I have for now, but I can see, that even under those conditions, given the difficulty of the traffic at that intersection and the parking on this lot, it's a tough spot. But I'd like to hear what my colleagues have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Gentleman. Mr. Claremont?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know we opened this last week, and I believe we probably went through the department comments at that time, but I think it's worth noting with regard to specifically the fire department, I guess did not have a particular problem with the site. Some of the issues that are raised tonight, we raised last week. It sounds to me like there's been a discussion that was at least initiated between the developer, the applicant, and the abutter, but that didn't come to pass for whatever reason. And it may be worthwhile to have that conversation reopened or revisited so that you can speak with the abutter and find out what their concerns are, number one. And number two, I always think it's a good idea to speak with the neighborhood group, because they'll bring some concerns to mind that perhaps have not even been brought up here this evening. I think we all agree it's a site that's ripe for redevelopment. It's one of the best sites in the city in terms of where a business is going to be located, but it's got to be right. It's got to fit. It's got to run properly, and we don't want to squeeze too much into too small of a site. So that'd be my suggestion, is if the applicant was of a mind to want to meet with the abutters and to meet with the neighborhood group and get their input, I think that would go a long way to alleviating some of the concerns that are brought before this board. So that's all I have in terms of a comment at this point.
Thank you, Mr. Claremont. A couple of issues I have is, I think the plans are better than we thought when it was last before us. I think the applicant did a good job with working with Division of Planning and Development. I think they opened up the open space. Obviously, I'd like to see them do the adjusted sidewalk. I'd like to see the plan in a little more detail and removing some of the snow, because I think one of the big concerns here that has been touched on by everybody is the parking layout. Obviously, if the parking layout cannot handle the area, then there's going to be a problem with the parking getting out onto the busy streets, as we know. I do know that it is here for site plan review. We did receive a lot of favorable reports from the other city engineer department, and as well as the fire department, which didn't have a problem with the access getting into the back here. I think Mr. Murphy brought out the fire issue. I think they feel comfortable. They had no concerns. I'm thinking what they feel is maybe they can get to it through Middlesex Street or Wood Street with the hoses. I'm not sure, but I know they had no initial concerns when we received that from the department through the city. But I do think by picking up the open space, it's much better than the plan that we had last week. And the issue, as everybody has been on, is what type of businesses do go in there. I know the applicant's well aware of that. I know Mr. Hall indicated that last time we were here, that he knows that if the other units get filled up and they meet the parking capacity, then the other units will not be leased out, period. And he knows that basically would not be good for his client, not be good for the business. So I know they keep that in mind. We touched on it at length. Mr. Hall did touch on it. He knew quite well that the occupancy permit would not be issued if the other issues do come up and are filled. We know it's a mixed-use zone, so it's difficult for us as board members to try to guess what applicants go in there and how they do fill up the parking. So therefore, we have to rely on inspectional services to make sure that those parking requirements are fulfilled. I think if we did see the snow storage plan, it would help us fill really where that snow would be moved, and if we could see that plan as well with the adjusted sidewalk plan, I think we'd have a better picture of the site in detail. And basically, those are just my comments at this time. Thank you. Any of the board members have anything further to say? Anybody like to entertain a motion at this time?
Mr. Chairman, I'll just ask the applicant if I could, if you'd like an opportunity to meet with the abutter, number one, and to meet with the neighborhood group, because obviously they're not required to do so, but if they're of a mind to do so, I'd make a motion to continue, but I need to know whether or not they're interested in that.
Mr. Chairman, I spoke with my client. He thought it was a good idea that Mr. Claremont had suggested. I think he's very interested. He knows the abutter, to speak with the abutter, and maybe spend the next 2 weeks going through any problems that we might have with the plan. and also maybe, as the chairman has mentioned, draw up more detailed plans showing the sidewalk and those other issues, snow removal, things like that. So we could use the 2 weeks to draw the plan and then talk to the abutter.
2 weeks sufficient time?
He didn't mention the neighborhood association.
Yeah, they did.
Neither did Mr. Claremont. But we would agree with Mr. Claremont's suggestion that we speak with the abutter, the direct abutter. I don't think this is not a CVS. It's a much more downsized development than what was suggested there before. It's a neighborhood development. It's a retail development. I don't think you get a lesser use anywhere than what my client has proposed for this particular parcel. So, subject to what the board would like to do, we'd certainly follow any lead that the board suggests if that's necessary, but I think getting neighborhood groups together is just going to delay the process. We would be happy to meet with the abutter, though.
Yeah, again, it's only a suggestion. You're not required to meet with the association if you weren't of a mind to do so, but I think it's always helpful, at least it's helpful to us as a board. If you think 2 weeks is sufficient time, I'll make a motion to continue it for 2 weeks
I'll second the motion.
with the approval of the applicant.
Second the motion.
Motion's made to continue for 2 weeks. Discussion?
On the motion, so I just wanted to point out that, yeah, I'm going to support the continuance, and I think it might be wise to contact the neighborhood association.
Yeah, no,
Now, obviously, as Mr. Clement said, we can't force you to do that, but, you know, I don't ever want to approve anything that, you know, it seems like we're trying to hide from the neighborhood group, and I'm not suggesting you are. I'm just saying that I can't imagine anything bad could come out of that meeting. Maybe a difficult meeting, but I think if you explain the situation, if it is indeed a good project, and indeed it is, I think anything we can do to make that corner more attractive is a good thing. I think it's a good idea to redevelop that corner, and it's, as Jerry said, it's a great corner for retail business. I think you'll have tenants, you know, lining up for it. But I don't think it could hurt to talk to the neighborhood association. I also think that given the issues, you know, the kind of very tight parking situation and the issues with snow removal, it might not be a good idea to consider downsizing a little bit so you could add more parking and put some snow storage on the property. I think that you could still have a great project that's a little bit smaller, add a little bit more parking, have some place for snow storage, and everybody will be happy.
No further discussion, so the motion's been made to continue, and it has been second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye?
Aye.
I vote yes for the motion to continue. Obviously, we have no control who Attorney Murphy invites to the meeting, so therefore, we will continue for 2 weeks, okay? The motion carries 5 in favor, none against, to continue to next planning board meeting, which I think is April 7th? That's correct, yeah, April 7th. Good luck. We do have 2 more public hearings. However, at this point in time, I'd like to take one of the, take a matter out of order on the agenda, and if we could address the CVS Bridge Street, Lakeview Ave, which is under old business. I do see that the neighborhood association is present, and I'd like to address their concerns before we start the public hearings. If the board members agreeable to that matter? Okay, so basically, I'm gonna skip over to the old business before we start up the 2 more public hearings that we have. Usually take a little bit more in time. Under old business, this is a CVS on Bridge Street and Lakeview Ave that we approved with several conditions. The board will review updated architectural plans and the latest site plan revision showing historic streetlights to match existing location in the municipal parking lot further up Bridge Street in order to satisfy the condition of this site plan. May we hear from the applicant, please?
Mr. Chairman, James Flood, 81 Bridge Street, representing the developer. As you stated, that was one of the conditions of approval, that we meet with the representatives of the city and the neighborhood to come up with the design of the final building, and we have done that. And I have with me Bryce from BKA Associates with me tonight, and also Paul Beck, who was the developer, also representatives from the neighborhood that were present at the meeting, and I'm pleased to tell you that they've reached an agreement. The streetlights are not shown on these drawings, but we have agreed with the planning department to put streetlights along the road, Bridge Street, like, you know, historic type streetlights. So if you want to show them, Bryce, what we did, and then you can hear from the neighborhood, and hopefully this will satisfy you.
We
come a little, quite a ways from our original meeting, from the proposed,
Sure.
and have tried to satisfy the needs of the town.
Those are a copy of what the plans we have in our packet,
Yeah, I
sir?
have the same
Okay.
things.
It looks to appear to be, yep.
Same thing.
We have two different pictures in our packet, okay, yep,
There may be some additional perspectives that you have.
okay. We have at
This is
least
the
that
corner.
one, I believe, right? Okay. And I think we have that one as well, okay. Different angle, correct?
Different angle,
Right.
exactly.
That's heading up Bridge Street, right, okay.
It's right in the corner, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. You have a third one there, too? Okay.
It's where we started from.
Okay, so that was basically a duplicate of the other one, okay. All right. Thank you. Anything further in regards to that, Mr. Flood? Anybody else on your behalf want to say anything further in regards to those site plans? And if not, then I'll turn over to anybody else who has concerns.
I think we have representatives here, Mr. Chairman, from the neighborhood that might
I will
want to
hear
say
from them,
something.
sure,
Yep.
absolutely. We always hear from them.
Of course we do.
Sure, anybody here from the neighborhood who want to make any comments or concerns, if you may, please?
Good evening, gentlemen. Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Same to you, thank you.
Thank you. My name is Anne Marie Page, and I'm the president of Centerville Neighborhood Action Group. And with me is Patricia Hunt, and Mrs. Hunt is the vice president of the Centerville Neighborhood Action Group. And we're both just going to give you a quick little mini. We can't thank CVS enough for all their hard work. Their engineers, everyone involved in this project has worked with the Lowell Planning Department upstairs, and whatever we have asked them to take a second look at, they have. They have certainly gone above and beyond, and if other neighborhood groups have as wonderful dealings with people putting different projects in their neighborhood as we have, they're going to be very, very fortunate. We are extremely pleased with all their extra efforts. They're a good neighbor.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
I concur with my colleague here. I want to thank CVS and the City of Lowell's Planning Board, and wish Mr. Kaysen was here, but he's not, for including CNAG, Centerville Neighborhood Action Group, in their plans for building CVS. The Bridge Street corridor is really going to be beautiful, and this is something that we've been very anxiously waiting to happen, so we're really appreciative for all the work that they've done for us. When I see CVS, I see progress in Lowell, and I think that's really important for all of us to keep in mind. And again, I want to thank everybody, and happy St. Patrick's Day.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you.
Anybody else here like to speak in regards to this project? Anyone else? Anyone else? Hearing none at this point in time, any of the board members have any questions, concerns? I know this was one of our conditions for the site plan. I know we made a condition to bring it back before us so the board would have the opportunity to look at it. A lot of times we make a condition and just make it contingent upon approval, but this was one that the board felt strongly, working with the developer in the neighborhood, that we want to see the plans back before us for our approval. So we know what the final product's gonna look like, and so when we drive by in the future, we can say, oh, do we approve that? And say, yeah, I think we did. This time we know exactly what it's basically gonna look like, so hopefully it answers a lot of questions when you see development and you're finally saying, are they done yet? Are they adding to it, or what? Hopefully this, we'll have a good picture of what the final outcome would be. So go ahead, Mr. Lockhart.
I just had one question about signage. Do you have additional signage for the site? There's reference in our materials here that you do.
It's going to be brought back at a later date.
Be brought
I think
back.
you're going to have
Is
to
that-
come back with that later to the Board of
So there'll be
Appeals.
something in the
Mr.
ground
Walker.
around there somewhere? Okay.
But I think what we're looking for tonight is some sort of a vote from you people saying
No, I know.
that, you know.
The architectural plans are
are
acceptable.
Yeah, so they can proceed further in acquisition of the property and demolition.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody else have any further comments or questions?
And just a comment, Mr. Chairman,
Sure.
I'll congratulate CVS and the neighborhood group for working together so well to bring this matter forward. I think the architectural renderings that have been submitted are excellent. I think they'll really fit in the character of the neighborhood, and congratulations once again. I think it'll be a wonderful project.
Any further questions or concerns? No? I want to thank the Neighborhood Association for coming down tonight. I know at the East End Club you have a busy night there tonight. I know a lot of friends of mine are there. But thank you for coming in on your busy schedule, and I appreciate it. I'd like to entertain, somebody like to make a motion that we do accept the architectural plans as presented as part of the site plan revision.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Well, moved and second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, chair votes yes. That part of the plan has been accepted. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
And pass our good word out to CVS to do, good work, Mr. Flood. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to point out that CVS, Lowell is the home of CVS. First CVS ever was built in Lowell, Mass., so it's good that you
First
guys
store
are
here.
continuing with their roots.
Good luck. Which one was the first one?
Third and Central Street.
On Central Street?
Yeah, up by,
Oh, okay, that was the first one?
yeah,
I remember Central Street had one, but I wasn't sure if that was the first one.
it's this side of Jackson. Yeah, right in there somewhere.
Moving along on our public hearings, the next matter is 868 Middlesex Street. The Lowell Planning Board will hold a public hearing to hear all interested persons relative to an application by Juan Mejia for the site plan review for a project located at the above address. The project includes a demolition of a portion of the existing industrial building and redevelopment of the remaining structure to include a commercial unit on the first floor, a church on the second floor, and 4 residential units on the third floor. Demolition of a portion of the building will allow the construction of 28 additional parking spaces for a total of 36 parking spaces. The project is located in the traditional mixed-use zoning district and requires site plan review under section 11.4 of the Lowell zoning ordinance. This is familiar to the board. It came before us once or twice in the past, actually 2 or 3 times, and it's been continued. One was come in for material change, which we voted for, then it went before the zoning board of appeals, and they referred it back to us for a site plan to be completed before and back before them. So at this point in time, may we hear the case for the applicant, please?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. We come in front of you again with the concerns that fire department, the landscaping, the parking spaces, and the analysis of GPIs that the board has demanded. And today with me here is Jim Nguyen from GPI. I'm going to have Jim start this presentation. Any other questions I could answer? Okay.
Yeah, could you, there should be a microphone there, Jim, and when you turn it on, it should be the green light for the holiday tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening. Again, for the record, my name is Jim Nguyen. I'm a professional civil engineer with Greenman Peterson out of Nashua, New Hampshire. GPI had reviewed the original site plan and the comments from city staff. We prepared a letter that was dated February 4th. I have extra copies if it's not part of your package, but within that letter, we summarized the anticipated parking demand and site circulation, which were a couple of things that came up as a concern through the original review of the site plan for the redevelopment of the site. For the parking demand, the current zoning parking requirements, the peak parking requirement, because of being a church use primarily, occurs during the weekend time period between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. This city requirement is 48 spaces, which includes 40 for the church use, 77 spaces for the residential apartments proposed, and 1 space for the small office use. During all other time periods, the requirements are 34 spaces or less. The original site plan had 36 spaces, so as part of our study, we did 2 things. We, one, looked at the church exists at a different location, so what we did is actually did some survey at that location to see what the current demand was for the church. But then we also looked at ITE trip generation to be specific for a church use to see what they recommend for a parking requirement or for a parking supply. Services currently provided for the church are on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 7 p.m., and then on Sundays at 12:30. The observations that were made were in the week between January 29th and February 3rd. With that, there were between 17 and 43 people attending the services, with a parking demand between 5 and 12 spaces. And one of the reasons why the demand is fairly low for this church is the church provides a bus service, and Pastor here could speak more of that, but a lot of the people that attend the church services do utilize the bus service to get to and from the site. So the parking requirement needed is fairly low for the church because of that service provided. So if you looked at the 12 spaces, the peak demand that we observed, the 7 for the residential use, and then the 1 for the office, that came up to a peak rate of 20 spaces needed. Then we looked at, as I mentioned, IT chip generation, parking generation handbook. For a church, it recommends a peak parking demand of 7.81 spaces per 1,000 square feet, which equates to 32 spaces, of course, on a Sunday. The 32 spaces plus the 1 for the office and then the 7 for the residential comes up to 40 spaces. Of course, this 40 spaces does not include credit for. It's intended that the residential uses are going to be church members, so there's really some interaction between that, as well as, again, as I mentioned, the church provides a bus service that a lot of the people that come to the church utilize those buses. But what we tried to do is basically come up with a plan to provide those 40 spaces as recommended by ITE. For site circulation, the original plan had one 12-foot wide entering. I'm not sure if you remember what the original plan, but on one side of the driveway, it was 12-foot entering. On the other side of the site was 12-foot exiting. There were some comments from the fire department that they wanted at least one wider driveway to have better access into the site. Also, there is, I have a marked up site plan here, which I'll explain, but just want to kind of orientate the site a little bit. This is the building that is going to remain. The building that is going to be removed actually encompasses, you can see the hatched area here. There's an existing warehouse building that's going to be removed. What the original plan had was 2 different parking levels. There was a lower level here that would be accessed through Middlesex Turnpike. And then there was a secondary access. It's a 12-foot shared driveway or pathway, or whichever you want to call it, that goes on to Branch. One of the concerns was with having people use this driveway being only 12 feet wide, that you wouldn't want to have two-way traffic from the church, particularly with this upper parking lot, interacting with those people there. And I know it's pretty common that those people do park on that roadway. So what was suggested by the city staff and GPI agreed with, which is a great idea, was just to provide a sloped parking lot. So that way, again, rid of the wall, sloping the parking field, and having one contiguous parking field. Sure.
Just to clarify on that point, so you will not be using the Branch Street egress at all?
Correct. By doing this, what it allows us to do is to close that off. We have bollards here, basically separating the church parking lot with the residence parking lot, giving these people access onto Middlesex Turnpike. What we did as part of this plan is reconfigure the parking spaces a little bit to provide the handicap spaces closest to the door, put the enter-exit driveway 26 feet wide approximately in the center of the driveway, given more flexibility for access onto the site. We do have, as I mentioned before, the 2 buses that do provide service to the church. We have those spaces here. By having the entrance-exit at this location provides great accessibility to those spaces, but also gives great accessibility to these other spaces. Basically this parking aisle. As shown in this plan, and again, I apologize for the red line plan. I do have, if all right, through the chair, to hand out this plan.
Absolutely, sir. Go
Okay.
ahead.
We actually just prepared it today, so.
Thank you, Mr. Wynn.
What this plan does is provide the required 40 parking spaces, a wider entrance-exit driveway, handicap spaces that are close to the front door, and as well as meets the 22-foot aisle requirement per the zoning. One of the comments that we got back, and I can go through some of the comments that we received from city staff, From the traffic engineer, we received a comment that an adequate study was completed as required. The changes outlined in the parking study shall be reflected in a new design to provide the necessary parking and adequate circulation, which is what we tried to address with this plan in front of you today. Another comment letter we got from Mr. Glosson, in response to the fire department, the single two-way curb cut provided, at this point it was 18 feet wide. We actually made it even wider from the original plan to 26 feet. The applicant provided design narrative for sprinkler system, which I'm just a civil engineer, so some of these engineering issues can be addressed. I mentioned the retaining wall has been eliminated to provide better circulation through the site. We did provide a parking study, which I just presented to you. The applicant is currently developing a stormwater plan, and calculations will be provided to the city's engineer for review. Landscape open space is insufficient to satisfy the requirements. We did mention that we would work with the staff to improve the area that is being proposed to be landscaped. One of the changes that we made from the original plan that's shown in this plan is there was 3-foot setbacks when the requirement is actually 5 foot. So we were able to develop this plan to have 5-foot setbacks, which would be landscaped. And I highlighted in red some of the areas that could be, although small, at least it wouldn't necessarily need to be paved. And there's a little section in this corner here that can provide at least a landscaped area for something that doesn't exist today. It's really paved building area today. Landscape screening needs to be provided along the abutting residential uses, includes the southwest property line. Landscape screening is required to be no less than 5 feet and provide landscape or fencing. To achieve the required buffer, one parking space may need to be removed. And I believe, Mr. Passman here, that we are going to be providing fencing along the property, and now we are providing the 5-foot landscape buffer along the whole site. Parking space labeled 35 is identified as a handicap space. Given the grade at this point, better layout would be to move the handicap space to where 14 was. One of the things we did in this plan, and it's flexible, we could do either one. We had the handicap spaces, the 2 required, close to the door. These could be either at this location or at this location. We recommended just to be here just because it's, again, closest to all the access points, and figured that's the best spot for the handicap spaces. Please note the traffic engineer's comment with respect to access off of Branch Street. Given the access serves as a passageway for abutters, recommends limiting access to Branch emergency vehicles only. What we're actually proposing as part of this plan is to close that off. One of the comments that we did here was potential of leaving these spaces off to get emergency access onto Branch. One of the things with that, one, this is only 12 feet wide, which I'm not sure if that's really beneficial for emergency access. Plus, I know that some of the residents use that to park. And one of the things that I believe is one of the city requirements is the parking space to be 200 feet within the street. If you look at this street line to the last parking space, all the parking spaces are within 200 feet. So what we're recommending or proposing is to provide the 40 spaces as shown in this plan. If need be, and we do get rid of those spaces, the applicant would be willing to do some if a valet-type parking either in this area or that area, but as I mentioned, I think the plan presented provides that recommended 40 spaces per ITE, and since it is within 200 feet, I believe that one access point being wider than the 18 feet is sufficient for the site.
One thing I do want to add, on the entrance from Branch Street, there is a sliding door that is existing, fence sliding door, which we closed. So I do want to leave that closed, but it also open for any kinds of emergency, fire emergency, or ambulance emergency. that access to that branch street. As you can see, we have provided enough landscaping in the area of the parking. The retaining wall is no longer gonna be there, so now we are providing more of a straight parking down to Middlesex Street. With the fire protection system, we already are working with the company. There's a signing fire protection for the building and for everything that needs to go for 4 units. I'm open for questions. The parking lot is gonna have signs, lighting. The lighting, I had asked for more additional procedures of how the light's gonna be, because we don't wanna also bother the neighbors with too much lighting, so they're gonna be covered up lighting. Today I don't have a sketch of that. They were supposed to fax me one, and it never got there, but that's something I could provide later on to City Hall or to Aaron. I'm here open for suggestions, questions.
And actually, just to add one more thing to it, the plan it presented here, I know it's just a red line sketch, not engineered, but I think it's really for a purpose of discussion and talk to get your feedback. And just one more thing I want to add about traffic. You know, the previous use was warehouse use with limited on-site parking. You know, warehouses have both employee traffic, truck traffic, you know, church uses, and as I mentioned, the services that provided are, you know, generally after the commuting peak and on Sundays when traffic's generally lighter. So traffic interaction usually when it's the traffic's lighter. So I just wanted to add that, and I'll turn it over. Thank you.
Something else that I also want to add, and we're providing with 40 parking spaces. Actually, with the 215 passenger bus that we use, that's 30 persons that do not bring cars to the site. We're going to have more parking spaces that we really need. I had made a survey on the church of how many people drive to church. I counted 12 cars on a Sunday. So everybody else, you know how gas prices are up right now, they'd rather take the church bus than drive them their own car.
Thank you. Anybody else want to speak on behalf of the applicant before I turn it over to the public? You have anybody else wants to speak, Mr. Mejia? Okay.
I think everybody's favor.
Okay, well, we'll get to that. Okay. Anybody here like to speak in favor of the project? Anybody here in favor? In favor? Some of the people up there, would you want to come down and speak, or you just want to raise your hands to state that you're in favor? Whichever way you want to do it is totally acceptable to the planning board.
I believe that they don't know too much English, so unless you want me to interpret, I have no problem with that either.
Raise your hands.
Okay. Anybody up there speak, how do people speak English, okay? Not at all? Okay. Could you ask the people up there if you could translate for us a little bit to say if anybody would like to give us a show of hands who are in favor of this project? Okay. 1, 2, 3.
And I just want to say this is not even half of the
I know,
church.
we'll get to you, hold on. I see approximately 24 people hands are in favor. Okay, thank you very much. If anybody would like to speak, you can let them know that they're more than welcome to come down and speak before the microphone. Thank you for translating for me, I appreciate that, okay? Anybody else here like to speak in favor? We do have at least 24 people upstairs who are here this evening who did show by show of hands that they are in favor of this project with the assistance of the young lady up there who interpreted for us. Anybody else here like to speak in favor? In favor? In favor? Hearing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. Anybody like to speak in opposition? In opposition? In opposition? Hearing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. At this point in time, I'll turn it over to any board members who have any questions or concerns. Mr. Clement, why don't I start with you first this time?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think you did a good job making the necessary changes in your plan. I just want to address a couple of things, if we could. I think there's an opportunity, as you said, you've got 40 spaces there. You're probably going to end up being more than you need on any particular Sunday, which is your busiest time. From my perspective, I'd like to see you continue to work with the DPD to try and straighten out your landscaping plan. I know there's been some added in here on a red line basis to give yourself some buffer with the abutting properties. I think that's great, but there's some opportunities perhaps even within the parking area to find some landscaping areas where you could perhaps utilize some of that space for some landscape open space, and that would break up your parking lot a little bit, and I think it would look a little nicer. I think you've already addressed moving the handicap parking spaces the way it was suggested, and in your traffic report, the recommendations at the end, basically that the appropriate radii be provided at the site driveways on Middlesex Street. I wasn't certain if that had been taken care of.
Yeah, what we provide in here is a 10-foot radius, basically, all the way from the sidewalk, all the way to the parking space. I think that's pretty good for a downtown or urban use. One of the other things that I didn't note in this plan, but I can put on the record because that was one of the comments, is to provide wheelchair ramps or handicapped accessible ramps on either end of the driveway, making it ADA compliant.
Right, I think that was part of the conclusion of the report. Sidewalks match the existing materials or be made of cement, and all proposed curbing be vertical granite, and new wheelchair ramps at the site driveways conforming to the ADA. So
Correct.
That was
Correct.
okay.
Thank you.
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clement. Mr. Lockhart?
I have a couple of questions. The buses that you refer to there, did I hear 15 passenger?
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm just
Yes.
trying to get an idea of the size and
Yes.
what is the turning radius that's required, and, just give us a feel for that if you could.
It's just a regular 15-passenger bus. I don't really know the size of it. I was trying to get some more detail on the bus. It weighs, I think, 7,000 pounds. It's not a big school bus.
Yeah,
It's
all right,
a more
15 passenger.
Right.
Probably more like a van type.
More like a van
type.
style.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Okay, yeah, okay. It has here in our documentation that you're currently developing a stormwater plan.
That is
and
correct.
Calculations, is that correct?
That is correct.
So you still owe us that?
They're working on that right now
Okay.
as we
just-
speak.
Just a point of clarification, that's all. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lockhart. Mr. Fischel?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a few questions regarding the bollards. Are you recommending the flexible type that emergency vehicle can?
Actually, what we're thinking of having removable ones, so they're solid, but you can pull them out if ever need be.
If need
Yeah.
be?
Yep.
Okay. And Mr. Chairman, I guess I don't know if we're going outside our boundary, but I was very concerned looking at the house that's right there, and if you notice that the door comes right out into that right-of-way, and I'm just concerned. I would just hope that it's, with the bollards being removable, I would hate to see if the temptation is, it should be only for emergency use. My concern is if you take one, if they start to use that, if you take one step, if a child takes one step out of the door of that home that's right there, you're right into that right-of-way. Without even being able to react, you'd end up, I think there'd be a serious incident there. I'm just a little concerned when I was looking at that. I'm happy to see the bollards there. I'm just a little concerned, whatever temptation you have to use it, I think if you go and take a look at that, Reverend, I think you would be concerned yourself, because you open that door and your first step is right into that right-of-way.
That's one of the reasons that we have suggested close and put the balls here. I don't want vehicles coming in and out unless it's a really an emergency. The fire department, if
they could run over there with the hose, I think.
The fire department parks right, their
Right.
parking space is right towards that street.
Right.
So there shouldn't be no cars parking there at all. As a matter of fact, I have a sign on the fence, any parking there will be towed.
Yeah, and I would
Because-
recommend is signage as well, not just the bollards, but to go the extra, is signage placed there?
We do have a sign assisting right now.
Okay, in with the bollards specifically, again, no matter how tempting it is for people, once these things get built, if nobody's in there policing it, it'd be easy to just take the bollards off and, you know, rather than somebody wanting to go through all the way down here and just exit. And it's just a very dangerous situation back there, so I would just, again, signage, it will be important. Obviously, it still has to be monitored, but at least there's no excuse as to what the intent of those bollards are. And then I would just, I have to compliment the GPI on your parking study, the recommendations, and then the quick action to at least show us exactly what the intent was here. So I really appreciate that. And I would just echo Mr. Claremont's thoughts on the landscaping, understanding this is a traditional mixed use. I think it's, you know, this is going to be an improvement to way that currently that site looks, but I think there's still, you know, you can still dress it up, so you'll even be that much more proud of what you have here. I would like to see a lighting plan. You know, we did recognize that there are residential structures right behind here. You want it to be safe for your parishioners, but you also want to make sure that it's not creating some sort of a nuisance to the abutters. So I certainly would like to see a lighting plan with this as well. But again, I think this has come a long way. That's all I have to say, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Fischett. Mr. Genman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I think this is a much better plan. I really like it. I had the same thought that Mr. Fischett had, though, regarding that access next to the firehouse, because I was up there yesterday, and, you know, it's kind of deceiving on paper.
Yes.
But this is the front yard of those houses. You know, you do walk right onto the middle of that driveway, and the firemen park their cars there. It's backing in and out. I think if you leave any temptation for somebody to drive through there, it's a mistake. I almost think that maybe it should be a permanent block. But I understand you wanting to have access, but you have sufficient access on Branch Street. Something to think about, anyway. Some type of temporary solution there is probably not a good idea, because I think it would encourage people to use it as a cut-through, and it also may create some traffic that could be dangerous. So that is a concern, but you know, I'll leave it up to you to determine how you want to adjust that. I have been concerned about the parking since it's below city standard. Even though the traffic at your church is lower, much lower than that, I'm sure when you get a new facility that your flock will grow, and you may have a need for more cars. But I am encouraged that you did this work to bring it up to the ITE standards. That probably will be sufficient, especially given the nature of your parish. So I think it's looking much better. Good job.
Thank you, Mr. Genman. A couple of questions I have is, I do like the plan, how it's changed. Basically, when we saw it the last time, we had the two different entrances and exit, which are, I think, only 15 feet. And then the new plan that we received, we had the one that was 18 feet. And then tonight, we see the new sketch now, which is 26 feet. I like the way you open that up a lot. Obvious, since this is a new sketch that we've seen for the first time tonight, I'd like to at least have the final plan be reviewed by a city engineer, because sometimes they'll pick up on a lot more things that we do not pick up on this, looking at it for the first time this evening, instead of having a chance to review it. But I do like how you open that up to get in and out of there. I think that was important as a fire department safety issue. I know they're coming from the rear, but if they want to bring a truck in that way, obviously, they wouldn't get in the back way. I know they are abutters to your property, but I think this plan does do a very good job. I know you do have the 40 spaces, so I'm not too concerned about snow storage. You could obviously stack it somewhere, remove it if you had to, because you have enough room for your parking. One question I do have, though, is, and it's not negative by any means, I'm just saying, how do you set it up that it's intended for the residential apartments to be occupied by church members? How does that work?
Well, that's...
I mean, someone comes up with a P&S, you say, are you going to come to my church before I sign this?
Yeah.
Or
Well, I don't think it's I'll let
I mean, I'm just curious how that works. I mean, obviously, we don't hold you to that, but obviously, if you have a will and buyer...
Well, there's two ways I look at it. As being a church, I don't know if you have been to Costa Missionary Church. we are kind of loud, and the reason I want members of the church living on top, because I don't want complaints saying, well, you guys are too loud. And that is one of my reasons that the apartments, right now, I have members that live in very low housing, and I have been to their housing, and it's sad. So I'm providing a better living for them. And if they do decide to leave the church, then they're going to have to also leave the lease for somebody else.
Oh, so you're not going to throw them out if they leave the church then?
No, we won't throw them out.
Okay.
We just give them a 15-day, 30 days notice.
Whatever the lease requires by law,
Exactly.
obviously, right? Okay. I was just curious how that worked. I know there's always a good intention there, and that does affect the amount of cars you have there, but how it's enforced, obviously, it's another issue, but I know what the intentions are well, so.
We added it to the requirement, but it's
Sure,
just something.
I
wanted to
understand that,
note.
okay.
Yep.
But as indicated, I do like your plan a lot better. It has come a long way since we've seen it before. I think you did a very good job in this, Mr. Nguyen. I think before, when we saw the plans come before us twice, we didn't have the necessary information that I know myself didn't feel comfortable with, and I know I expressed that to Mr. Bahia, saying, you know, we really have to see the detail. Without the detail, you know, we have the city boards who made comments. We haven't seen them. He told us they were forthcoming, and I'm glad to see they did a good job on this plan. I think the plan has come a long way, and I like what we see. Obviously, I think there's a couple of matters that could be addressed through, like, the DPD, the landscaping plan. As I see where you did pick up a lot of the green space. I like to see that 5 feet setback instead of the 3. That picks up a lot throughout the whole site. As indicated, I like the entranceway coming in, the extra parking spaces. I think the lighting plan would be good. As you know, I'm sure, usually in the lighting plan, we want the lights facing down on your
That is
project,
correct.
not the neighbors. I mean, that's basic lighting plan that we usually look at all times, so it's not interference with somebody's livelihood onto their property, which is, usually I know when you have the parking, they're gonna be facing down into your parking lot, as well as up by the residential in the church, so people can see their self getting in and out of the site when it's dark, I mean, for safety reasons, obviously, and people more comfortable walking the parking area in a lit facility. So those are basically my concerns.
Mr. Chairman, if you remind me adding, and there is going to be a snow removable team.
Okay.
As soon as it snows, they're going to come and remove the snow. There are also going to be cameras in this parking lot.
Security?
It's security, for more
Very good.
security. And yes, if it gets kind of crowded, we are going to have our valet parking, just in case anybody needs to leave in an emergency, they can move their cars. I just wanted to add that.
Thank you, I appreciate that, sir. Hearing that, any
Chairman,
board
let
members have any further questions or concerns? Oh, I'm sorry, Aaron, go ahead.
I just wanted to make one comment on the curb cut and the widening of that, which I think is a great idea to make sure fire apparatus can get in. But one issue that we'll need to look at is the width of that curb cut is actually wider than what the zoning code now allows. In the traditional mixed-use zones, 25 feet is the width, and the curb cut alone without the radii is 26 feet. And that may be necessary for the fire department, and I think that's fine, and I think anybody can be okay with that. But it might be worth looking at with Captain Weber and making sure that they need something that wide. If we can shorten that up a little bit, there's one place we can get landscaping. And it also helps with stormwater to have narrower curb cuts, pedestrian. So I think that might be something that.
And I think
would be
obviously if
worth
we had
looking
that referred to the city engineer, they could comment on that and give us some feedback on that. Obviously, you wouldn't have any objections that they want to narrow it a little bit more. I mean, obviously, you opened it up as they requested. If they feel it's too big, I don't think it's a deal breaker if they think, bring it in a little bit. Any problem with that, Mr. Nguyen?
Yep, and actually what I could even suggest is to, put a turning template for a fire truck to see how wide it needs to be and basically narrow it down to the requirement for that.
That'd be, yeah.
I think in the middle of the site, it's nicer compared to where the other plane was to the right. I think, like, especially where the buses will be coming straight in.
It's definitely give more accessibility, and it may not need to be so wide being where it is,
Okay.
Yep.
Any further comments from board members or from staff? Hearing none, what's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to recommend with conditions, and the conditions I suggest is that the applicant incorporate the recommendations of the traffic plan as set forth at the end of the letter dated February 4th of 2008, that the applicant work with DPD regarding finalizing the landscaping plan, that the applicant provide a lighting plan, that the final plans be reviewed by the city engineer and the traffic engineer, and also the curb cut be reviewed by the fire department, as we discussed, to possibly reduce it if we're able to do so. And then finally, providing some signage with the bollards that not be a throughway. I think that's all that we had that I can recall.
Motion is made. Any further discussion from board members?
One item, the stormwater plan and calculations to be added to that.
Provided.
Be provided.
As amended, acceptable? Acceptable to the maker of the motion, yes? Okay, so that'll come in as a condition if it'll follow an agreement. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Motion's made. Aaron, do you have all those? Any questions or concerns?
Actually, could you run through those one more time?
Sure.
Had to incorporate the recommendations of the traffic plan as set forth in the letter dated February 4th, 2008, working with the DPD regarding finalizing the landscaping plan, providing a lighting plan, obtaining final review of the final plans from the city engineer and the traffic engineer, reviewing the curb cut with the fire department with an eye towards cutting that down if we can, and providing signage where the bollards are that it's not a throughway, and providing, what Dick said.
Stormwater. Plan and calculations.
Okay, there has been a motion. Anyone want to second that motion?
I'll second the motion.
Motion made and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Chair votes yes. Mr. Mahay, Mr. Winnet, you have any concerns about those conditions that were made? Are those something that's a deal breaker, or are those basically acceptable?
No, sir.
Okay. All right. Good luck. We wish you well with the project.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome.
Board members.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming up there. Appreciate your time.
Good job. Oops, sorry, Tom. Yeah, that did a pretty good, they did a good job on that.
I'll let Jack handle that.
They came along a long way.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
This guy did a good job.
He did a good, this,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, and that's why I say
Plan.
the city engineer finally look it over, and get the comments, but he opened that up nice.
way to clean that area
Yeah,
up, too.
and I like the way he addressed all the issues when he did the narrative.
Yeah,
You know, it saves a lot of questions thereafter.
excellent job.
Okay, moving along, we have another public hearing. This public hearing is on Father Morissette Boulevard. I believe on our notice it says 527, I believe it's supposed to be 257. And I noticed a question later about the address, from what number it may be, but going along on 257 Father Morissette Boulevard, the Lowell Planning Board will hold a public hearing to hear all, excuse me, I'm sorry, my mic wasn't on. All right. This is 257 Father Morissette Boulevard. The Lowell Planning Board will hold a public hearing to hear all interested persons relative to an application by Tremont Yard LLC for site plan review of a development project located above address. The proposal includes the construction of a 5-story building on an existing historic building foundation. The proposed building will be approximately 53,000 square feet, with the upper 5 floors used for office space and the basement used for a restaurant. The building is located on a 73,000 square foot parcel, which will provide 75 parking spaces. The project is located in the downtown mixed-use district and requires site plan review under section 11.4 of the Lowell zoning ordinance. May we hear the case by the applicant, please?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, James Flood, 81 Bridge Street, Lowell, representing Tremont Yard LLC. With me tonight is Will Soucy, who is the manager of the LLC and the proposed developer. Also, our engineer Doug Leeds and our architect Jack Sullivan. The address, I know my application said 257, and I know the publication said 275, but I talked to Ron LeBrecq, in the engineer's office today, and he says it's probably going to be 237 when it's all said and done, so we don't know what the actual address is going to be. But what we're here for tonight is site plan approval for a complete historic renovation and redevelopment of the Tremont Yards warehouse, which I'm sure you're all familiar with the foundation that's out there today. They're going to restore the existing foundation and construct an additional 4 stories up above. It is the intention of the developer to lease the upper floors to a single commercial user, and we hope to lease the restaurant to a national concern downstairs. We feel it's a great location where it's close to the Songus Arena, and it'd be an ideal spot for them. And because of the historic significance of the property, Mr. Susi has been working closely with the Commonwealth of Mass and with the Lowell Historic Board in order that the building will be properly developed. And the Lowell Board did, back last August, Lowell Historic Board did issue a permit to allow the construction. And I think this is a little different situation. There is no parking required for this building because of its location close to the Ayotte Garage. But what we did do is we negotiated a parking lease with the City of Lowell for 60 spaces on the vacant lot next door, with an additional option under that lease to go to 75 spaces. So we'll have that available. But we are within 1,000 feet of the Ayotte Garage, and under zoning, it's not, parking is not required. I think because of the historic involvement in the project, I think they're going to have a lot of control as to what's going on. Under the historic permit, everything, landscaping, all of the improvements on the lot has to be approved by them. And I think that Mr. Susi met with DPD staff and has indicated that he's willing to work with historic and with DPD staff to coming up with these final plans. But they have a pretty good, because of the historic nature of the project, they have kind of a control over what we do. I'll turn it over. Oh, I've reviewed the comments from the departments. We have no problem meeting them. There was one comment from Conservation. We intend to file a request for determination. It's our interpretation of the wetlands ordinance that we're not subject to it, but we will file with them. Canals are not subject to that wetlands ordinance. But I'm going to turn it over to our engineer, Doug. He can explain the engineering, and then Jack can explain the architecture, and we'll be glad to answer any questions that you might have.
Hi.
Is that green? That's when it works.
Hello? No?
It's on. Yeah.
The light should be.
How's that? All right, sorry about that. For the record,
We've been
Doug
told.
Lees from
Comments from the back.
There you go, the peanut gallery. Doug Lees from Land Engineering and Environmental Services. As Attorney Flood mentioned, the proposed building is situated over the existing foundation. They're actually going to keep the existing foundation and build up inside it to support the additional building. It's a little deeper in this area. Was one story for the mechanical room. There's a concrete pad in that area, and then it extends about 5 feet beyond the concrete pad. So the additional impervious area from the building construction is the 5 foot beyond the concrete pad over what's existing out on the site now. So that worked out nice. And the parking lot right here is part of this parking lot A for the Songus Arena. It's the old Tremont Street. So all the utilities we needed were available in Tremont Street, which avoided us from having to come underneath the site along the boulevard. Has the trolley tracks. The trolley station originates right here next to the site. Wanalancet Mills is right next door. So we were really hoping we wouldn't have to come under the tracks and get into Father Morissette Boulevard to get to the utilities. So we had the sewer, the water, and the gas is available out in the parking area. There's an existing raceway that comes from the back of the site and ties down to the canal. And right now, the whole building, in the raceway comes out of the basement of the building, so the whole building drains into the raceway. All the runoff that lands on the foundation ties into the raceway, and there's a lot of evidence of the old foundation drains and drain pipes coming down from before, so it looks as though before any roof drains that were there came down and tied into the raceway also. And there's a exposed raceway in the back that the town has requested that it be capped. And as part of doing the work, this area back here is rough, and he hopes to clean it up as part of this project. So that would be capped off. So the stormwater for the roof drains is proposed to tie back into the raceway as it's going now and out to the canal. Really, the only other increase in impervious on the site will be the walkway, and the walkway is final. I mean, I showed a walkway on the site plan to show that there's going to be a door in the back, and it's going to have to be tied to it. But I think the final location will have to be approved by the Historic Society and the state, and shown on the landscape plan. So to address the impervious from the walkway, I propose putting an underdrain, basically a recharge right along the walkway, so any runoff from the walkway will be recharged right on site. And if there's many pervious pavers, the architect can work out a system for the walkway that's one of the pervious pavers where they won't need the recharge, won't need the underdrain, then they wouldn't have to put it in. And there would be no net increase in runoff from the site because the walkway would be taken care of in the building. It's the same as the building that's there now. So for a utility standpoint, it really came together well with the sewer, the water, the gas available right here in Tremont. The parking lease they had with the parking garage nearby, so there's no increase in impervious for the parking. Excuse me. And with the drainage, the existing building being tied into the existing drain the way it is, we were able to, by maintaining the footprint, tie into the existing drainage. That's really the lot extends back to an existing parking lot that's back here that's owned by the state and is leased out to several different companies and is not part of this project because that's leased out to the Wonderlands and some of the other developments around there. So the project is basically just the area of the building itself. The improvements and all the work will be taking place just on the building area and right outside it. I don't know if anybody has any questions about the site, but it's really a simple site because of the way it's so self-contained.
Thank you, sir.
I don't know whether I mentioned, but the property is owned by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and we...
I know it was in your
renting it.
narrative, but I don't know if you remember that.
105-year lease. I think I gave you a copy of the first draft of the lease on the filing, so they'll maintain ownership, but Will Susie's leasing it for 105 years.
Thanks, Doug. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, board members. For the record, my name is Jack Sullivan from Gavin Sullivan Architects here in Lowell. As Mr. Flood stated, our intent here is we're going to basically rebuild the existing foundation, and then without putting weight on the foundation wall so that we can keep its integrity, we're going to cantilever it, go up with a glass curtain wall with a composite aluminum canopy around the entire perimeter. We've been working with Steve Stoll and Chuck Parrott over at Lowell Historic quite a bit on this, and we are striving to become LEED certified in this building, but I can't guarantee it yet until we meet with all the tenants' demands, but it looks like we'll be able to do that. One of the things we're looking at is solar panels on the roof and sustainable design, different materials. So I think it's a pretty exciting project for the city. As I said, the concept here is to bring the new out of the old. The subfloor where the restaurant will also be open to the public. There'll be tours given by the National Park to view the waterworks, the old waterworks, which will be cleaned up. That's about it.
Thank you. Anything else, Mr. Flood? No? Okay.
It speaks for itself, Mr. Chairman.
Could I just ask one question on the design?
Yep.
I was up there yesterday, and I did, it was nice to see what it presently looks like now, and you can see the big X on the front of the building there. How far back does the project go? I know it goes back a little ways, then there's a whole bunch of other material behind it.
On the
Like,
lot
if you
line?
could put up the first plan that you had there? Yeah, I mean, looking at the front, and then see where the orange goes, yeah, back further.
Right back
How
here?
far back does that actually go?
That's in negotiations right now, I believe, between DCAM, One Lancet Mills, and Mr. Susi.
Because I know when it starts to go back, it seems like it goes quite a ways
It
back,
does,
almost
yeah.
like almost the length of the parking
The
lot
pa- it
there.
does,
And
all
I
the way to
couldn't
the
tell how
parking
far back the project was going
Yeah,
by
They're
looking at it.
negotiating right now between
Okay.
the three entities.
And I know by looking at it, they didn't quite tell me, but you could
Yeah.
tell what the front of the building was, and I wasn't sure how long,
Yeah.
if you want to call it the L shape, went back.
What we're
on
trying,
both
well,
sides.
this L shape here, that's the service building. That's where all our mechanical equipment will be, so there'll be nothing on the roof of the main building. But right now, there's a chain link fence back there.
Right,
We anticipate that's where the lot line might be,
okay.
but it's going to be in that area.
Yeah, I saw it because a lot of that building, as you can tell, you can see right through it.
Yeah.
All the walls are falling back on the side.
That's right.
As well as the back, and
Yeah.
I went around the site just a couple of times and get out and walked around the area to look through it, and I wasn't sure just how far back that
Yeah.
piece
So I
was,
can't
but-
give you an honest answer on
Okay.
that because they are
That's quite okay.
talking about it right
Yeah,
now.
because I did notice that it went back quite a ways when I parked right in that parking site there from the arena.
Yeah.
And I wasn't sure how far back the site would go, but, all right, thank you, I appreciate
Yep.
that. Okay. At this point in time, there's no further presentation by the applicant. I'll turn it over to the public. Anybody here like to speak in favor of this project? Yes, sir, if you come to the microphone and give your name and address for the record.
Hi, good evening, Mr. Chairman. My name is Paul Marion. I'm the Executive Director of Outreach at UMass Lowell, and I'm a resident at 44 Highland Street. Just seeing this for the first time, I'm speaking in this in favor portion. I have just a couple of questions. The university, of course, is excited to see this kind of ambitious development, coming on this lot that I know has been a challenge. In the 1980s, I was a staff member of the Lowell Historic Preservation Commission, U.S. Department of Interior. I worked with Chuck Parrott. I know what the restrictions have been here, and it's really terrific to see a local developer, taking this on and making it work. We add value to that parcel. Just a couple of questions. The university is one of the occupants of One Lancet Mill, and we use parking spaces in the enclosed lot. Is there any plan or discussion to extend the lease for parking spaces into the enclosed lot? No, so you're staying in the Lot A
Songus.
arena?
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Just another question. I was involved in the commissioning and the siting of the sculpture that's at the far end of the property. I'm just curious if that bronze sculpture by Peter Gorfain is within the parcel that you're leasing, and will you be responsible for it?
If you could just answer that through the microphone, sir, I appreciate it, thank you, so we can all hear you. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Will Susi, and to answer his question, yes, that the sculpture is part of the land, and we're talking to Chuck Parrott and Historical and trying to, design something around it to enhance it with the landscape and stuff.
Right, anything you could bring that would cause more.
Right, it's a beautiful piece.
It's been a little bit lost out
It's a
there.
beautiful piece.
Yeah.
I think it should be enhanced, absolutely.
Yeah. Those were the only questions I had.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Susi, for responding to that question. Anybody else like to speak in favor of the project? In favor? In favor? Hearing none, that portion of public hearing is closed. Anybody like to speak in opposition? In opposition? In opposition? Hearing none, that portion of public hearing is closed. At this point in time, I'll turn over to any board members. I'll start with Mr. Genman this time first, if I may.
Switching it up a little bit there, Mr. Chairman. It's all right, I'm ready. This is a great it looks like it's going to be a great project, very exciting for the city. It's a visible location, and by the depiction there, the job that you're doing, maintaining, that foundation, and yet having a beautiful office building, I can't see that it wouldn't have an easy time attracting a tenant there. So it's a very exciting project. I had a couple of questions about the parking. Now, on the chart that you've given us here, it looks like is this the zone that extends through that parking lot? So I'm looking at this here, and it shows a kind of an L-shaped lot.
I didn't give you that.
Okay, I got
don't
this
know.
from, maybe I got this from the
We
city.
get this from planning development.
I didn't see
But
that.
this L shape, is that is not part of your project at
I
all?
haven't seen that.
That's GSI.
That's just the zone?
The parking lot is not part of it.
Okay. Where are the 60 spaces that you're leasing from the city? Oh, it is.
That's,
City of Lowell owns it, but it's within that particular parking lot that you'll be leasing the 60 spaces. I want to also add that I think that's a terrific idea, even though you're not required by zone because of the proximity of the AR garage, but that's going to make your building much more attractive to potential tenants having the parking on site. How will people access that lot? Will they-
There's going to be an entrance off Father Morissette, and there's another entrance presently up by the Strongest Arena. There's two ways to come in.
From this end? Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Can't you also go by the one Lansing Mills down around, come in the back?
No, we're not going to, the one on Lansing Mills is going to be separate.
Okay. But I mean, if you go right before the one Lansing Mills, you take the right, go down the street, you
Yeah.
go left to the ballpark, you can take it right that way.
There's another entrance up there, yes.
So that's, 'cause I came in that way as well.
Right.
That way you have to go through the Wamasett parking lot.
No, you can just go
No,
back the
that-
street.
the one on Lancet
So
doesn't go
if you
down.
came right out of the Strongest Arena, and you walked out the front door and took a right, you can go right down that way there and come out to where you go to the ballpark. And you can
And-
drive right through there, which comes into the back of that lot, 'cause that's the way I get in.
I see.
A lot of thought, Steve, went into the parking lease, and if you'll read it, we've made provisions that in the event there is an event at the arena, then it'll be blocked off and we'll send our people over to the garage. So we're working together to try to
Terrific.
get this to go.
That's
So
great.
a lot of thought went into this.
The other question I had was, and the chairman was touching on it, with regard to the remaining ruins, I guess, of the brick structure that goes perpendicular to the site toward the arena,
That's
along the side of the parking
right.
lot.
That's our service building. That is part of this.
But there's the wall looks like it continues almost the length of the parking lot.
that whole wall.
Yeah, there's a wall that continues the length of the parking lot for the lot that's on this property, the lot that we're not using, it's leased out to other entities. Yeah, that's part of the old mill building, and they were required to keep that when they converted it to a parking lot.
Okay.
So there's no intentions to even do anything.
There's no intentions to remove it or
Right, it
anything.
starts at the chain link fence behind the building and continues all the way
Right.
down to the Hall Street
Right.
West.
I kind of like it. I think it would, as a divider between the parking lot and the arena parking lot. So that's good. I thought maybe you were planning to remove that. I have no further questions. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Fischett?
Mr. Chairman, I don't have much to add. I have to say, and I have to compliment the Historic Board and architect and Mr. Susi. I think when you look at what's being achieved here at pedestrian level and street level, you're really keeping the historic look of that building. And then when you go up, it really, it speaks to the fact that there's new development going on, but yet it still meets the architectural integrity of the era, which is really, I think
That was
is-
our idea, yeah.
it's a great achievement.
Thank you.
Do you have any idea, I'm looking at these, all the time you get these wonderful architectural drawings, and there's the street next door with a little car on it, but if you look at it right now, it's like a gate, chain link. Do you know if that's coming off, or is that going to be, is that going to look a little nicer than what how is that going to be incorporated into?
As far as the gate?
Yeah.
It's coming down.
Yeah.
That's all coming down, it's all
yeah.
going to be, okay, so that's all part of
The project, right.
Yeah.
of the project,
Yeah,
okay.
this rendering is really what the building's going to look like. I mean, this is not just a...
Oh, I
concept.
understand. I said, once we got beyond the entrance, though, I was a little concerned
Yeah.
as to what was going to happen with, so from Father Morissette Boulevard, as we're looking at this, that gate is coming down, and that is no longer going to be gated. Okay, all right, good. That's going to improve that look considerably. And that, I take it then, will be the main entrance for the most part for this?
Yeah, exactly,
This,
which is where our main interest of the building is,
okay.
at street level down here.
Okay. Any, and I don't know what the arrangement is with the state, and I have to agree with Mr. Genron, and I think everybody would agree that brick wall that runs the length of the site really adds a lot of character. My concern was, though, with deterioration over time, is there any Is there any plan to maybe improve the face of that a little bit, or just leave it just?
We
it's not
can't
part of
touch
the
that,
site?
that's not ours.
It's not even
so-
part of it?
No, I think that was probably part of the original approval with the historic when they approved that parking lot.
Just want to leave that,
Yeah,
yeah,
because it's an
okay.
old mill wall,
Okay.
from what I understand.
Yeah, okay. No, I have nothing to add, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Lockhart, I know you're a representative on the Historic Board, so you've had a chance to see this already?
Yeah, we have, and.
Any
it's a
comments you could
very-
lighten us up on, we'd appreciate it.
Very exciting development.
So obviously, we did receive in our packet, I don't know if you know, Mr. Flood.
The
they gave us
historic permit,
They
yeah.
gave us the permit with the conditions,
Right.
so that was given to us by staff at DPD, which
Right.
was nice for us to see, that note you had the approval, but I'll listen to Mr. Lockhart, who's our representative on that board.
Yes, we did pass that, and, you can see, I think,
I think you're going to stay very involved with it because of the historic nature of the foundation and what's going to happen there,
The
that the
turbines
historic
and
board is going
everything,
to
yeah, that's-
take control over. But we'll, deal with the planning department on the landscaping and the sidewalks and the planning on site.
nice development. Your lead certification?
We're striving.
Do you anticipate to be able to achieve that? And if you do, will you be the first building in Lowell?
That's one of our goals, but, we're working with a prospective tenant right now. A lot of it has to do with their interior components. But our goal is to receive LEED certification.
Okay, you think you will achieve that?
I'm going to try.
Yeah, good, okay, that's
I'm going to
commendable.
try, yeah. Well, that's the way to go now.
It certainly is, yeah. Have you had any discussion with the fire department? There's no documentation here and the department approvals from the fire department. I just,
I've not heard anything.
thing that,
No.
We feel like there's too much restriction to access to the site, obviously, with,
And there's plenty of access to the site.
yeah,
okay.
not like you're blocking anything, no.
Not gonna push it. I was just a little bit confused reading the documentation here about the entrance to the site up near the arena. Can you just go over that and
Well, it would be at the top
clarify where that is?
top of the parking lot, Rich. The main entrance is going to be through here,
Right,
but up here at the top, Cox Circle,
yeah.
there's another entrance.
All right, just off the circle and straight down. Okay, all right, there, all right, I couldn't. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Claremont?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a wonderful-looking project. Of course, much of what you have to do is going to be generated from the historic board, not from us. I know you mentioned there's a few comments here and there from the departments that you'll comply with, but there was nothing major in there that I saw. I think it's fantastic. I mean, you go into any city and there's a few buildings that you look forward to seeing, and I think this is going to be one of them. It's a wonderful blending of the old and the new, and I just think it's excellent, and I'll congratulate the applicant and everyone that worked on this. I think it's fantastic.
Once again, it's bringing the downtown closer to the university,
Yeah.
and that whole corridor
Yeah.
is coming along,
Yeah, I think it's a building
everything
that
going
people
on.
will look forward to seeing, so
Yeah.
congratulations on that.
That, something had to be done with that foundation.
Yeah. No other questions?
I also agree, I think it's gonna be tremendous when the site is developed. You look at what's there now, we have the building, it's total disrepair. You look at this beautiful building, I think the fact that you're trying to do the green aspect for the downtown area is beautiful. The old with the new with the glass. You've worked hard, looks like with the historic board, so you have they have a lot of control of what you're gonna do. Obviously, we saw the permit with all the conditions they passed. I think there's a total of 7 of them. Obviously, you're in favor of doing those when they got that approval, I believe.
Yep.
I think also it's gonna help the arena. I mean, people are gonna visit the site, they're gonna go to the arena. I know for the last 2 years, listen to the city council, they're concerned about getting new revenues into the arena. I think something like this, when you see this building, you see the arena, and it's not too far from where we're sitting right now this evening. It adds to everything. It's gonna add to the ballpark, it's gonna add to the arena, it's gonna add to all of the downtown area. I think it's a great project, and something I think it's well overdue, and I congratulate you for. I think it's gonna be great when you complete the project. Look very forward to it, so.
I think you're right, that it will add to the arena, and the arena will add to the restaurant down below, because right now people come in and go out. But now there's something right there where
They
they
can
park.
park right there,
Where they
walking
park and they can
distance,
go. So
and they can even walk to the ballpark from there.
it'll be good. It'll be good, yeah.
Mr. Chairman, and I'd add, it's sort of a chicken and egg thing too, because without the attraction of the ballpark and the arena, this isn't as an attractive a site to put such a facility. So it's, you know, the plan is starting to shape up and come together, bringing the university down, but
It all ties together.
it does. And the trolley going right in front of it there, that's fantastic.
It's there.
That's good, too.
Yeah, I mean, you have those tracks right there.
It is
that's,
there,
you know,
yeah.
especially as you say, you can do the little tour, stop at the restaurant for a few minutes,
Go down
and
the
complete the
basement.
tour.
Yeah.
You know, and everything's right there. I know, you know, the schools run all sorts of tours over
Yeah.
there from the high school.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think any kid's gone through the high school. I haven't been over there 3 or 4 times, and the mills over there and everything else. I think it's gonna look good. I mean, there's a lot of development going up in the area, but this definitely is gonna add to the whole downtown area. I mean, looks like a very exciting project, and I wish you well on it.
Thank you.
I congratulate Mr. Susi for coming forward with it. I know we've heard about this in the past, we've read little pieces up in the paper, but until we actually see the plan, you know, but I think it'll be very, very good for the whole city, so. Saying that, does any of the board members have any further comments, or if not, we'll entertain a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion for approval of the site plan review.
Motion is made,
Second.
and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes yes. Project's approved, 5 in favor, none against. Good luck.
Thank you very much.
wish you
Happy
well.
St. Patrick's Day.
Happy St. Patrick's to you, Counselor. Okay. Moving along, that completes our public hearings, and we already took care of the old business out of order. We do have one bond release. We have the board will discuss the release of a portion of a bond, money being held for the Hickory Hill Estates subdivision. We did receive communication in our packet. This was from, let's see, Joseph Caddy, you indicated that they requested that we release the bond leaving $2,000 for the sidewalk that needs replacement. Aaron, do you have any comment on this? This was forwarded to us by you.
No, just that.
This is from the city engineer's office, Mr. Caddy?
That's correct. Joe Cady works in the city engineer's department. I just confirmed with him with the work that needs to be done, how much money he's comfortable maintaining. He said he'd be happy with $2,000 left. It's a small dip in the sidewalk that needs to be repaired, basically, just to fill in with some asphalt. So he felt $2,000 was sufficient to hold back. To make sure that it was completed in May or June of this year. It's too cold to fix it right now, but he thought 2,000 would be enough.
How much we holding now, Aaron? Do you know?
I think it's 15,000.
Okay, 15, so they've asked them to release the 13, hold the 2 until the sidewalk is completed?
I'll make that motion, Mr. Chairman, to release the bond except for the 2,000
Okay, 2,000
suggested by the engineer.
to be held until the sidewalk is completed. Motion's been made, and we want to second that motion?
I'll second the motion.
Motion's made in second. Any further discussion, or all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, chair votes yes.
Mr. Chairman, relative to this, though, and I'm fine with this vote, but if we could just in the future, and even if we establish some guidelines, I mean, just to give you some indication where I'm coming from on this, but, I mean, in my profession, you know, I'm responsible to sign off on a mortgage discharge, and before I sign off on that, I want to make sure I have a printout of the fact that it has been paid off, and then the original mortgage, and that it reflects the proper document. And we also, you know, do construction lending, and I have somebody go out, do an inspection, take a picture, give me a report. We do a title rundown, make sure we get that back, and it's fine. You know, I get this back. I didn't even know where Hickory Estates is located, how much we're holding. You know, I think this was relatively small, but I know in the past, too, with bond releases, it doesn't seem that we really get a real comprehensive report, and I don't know if that comes from the engineer's department, but if we could get a little better, I mean, I know when there's funds that are held, and I get them from other communities, I get them from the city of Lowell, there's a very detailed breakdown of the line items and how the engineer's department or how the town came up with the amount of funds to be held. And then we would see an exact breakdown of what's being held, and then what's been completed, and then what is being, I would just, you know, again, this was minor,
Yeah, because this is just dealing with the sidewalk, where sometimes we do have a punch list.
Exactly, and again, I suspect that there was a list, we held 15,000 originally, well, I have no idea what was completed, so, again, it's just, I would,
So if we could see like what the old bond was compared to what the new ones are?
yeah,
So if
I
you could
would,
pull up the
I would
past
appreciate that, Mr. Chairman. I don't know about the rest of the board members, and
Aaron, do you
even,
have any discussion on that? Any
Yeah,
problem with that?
Yeah, I
That's
think
not a
it's a good
problem.
idea.
Really, when we do a subdivision,
A little more
we
detail,
get
even
the
a plan.
bond and letter, so I have a copy of that. I can make a copy for you guys. And typically, not always do I get the schedule, but I can get that from the engineers department to see.
I mean, in this case,
what
it's
their
just a
estimation
start,
is.
but I know sometimes we get the whole list of what has to be done.
Yeah, exactly. I can get the
Okay.
schedule that's from, that the engineers develop for what their estimation of the costs are and what's been done. I can certainly put that together next time.
I would appreciate that, and also, Mr. Chairman, we had a release requested here a while ago, and I think the attorney representing the petitioner had mentioned that the council had already accepted the roadway, and at least for my benefit, I'd like to have some criteria as to, I would think that it would come here first for any bond releases, for any work that's not completed, and then go to the council for, and I don't even know if that was the case. So I really would like to, I mean, if I'm a city councilor too, I would like to know that it went through the
Proper channels?
planning board and was signed off, so again, I would like to get a clarification as to what the procedure is for that, and
You have any problem with that, Aaron? You want to respond to that now, or we could follow it up whichever way you prefer?
No, I can put together a little punch list or a bullet list of what the process is supposed to be. And then anytime I get a request from, typically, anytime a developer is requesting for a release, they would call me to initiate that. I can put together more information if you want the initial letter of credit, the list and schedule of what's supposed to be done. Any other information that you like to, I can typically put together, as long as it's part of that application.
right, because there was the Enchanted Forest that came up there, where it was mentioned that the city had accepted the streets, and,
Yeah.
you know, I think we were holding back $300,000 or, so, yeah, and it just it boggled my mind as to.
Which is a big part of the project, whether the streets are
Right,
completed or not.
right,
And whether they've been accepted or not.
Exactly.
I mean, that's a substantial part of that project, not like fixing a sidewalk or a berm or something of that nature, or, green space.
Exactly.
Right.
So, thank you, Mr.
Thank you. So I believe in this matter, we did have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
So this matter carries, 5 in favor and 0 against to release the bond. Moving on to other business, we did receive notices from abutting towns. Unless there's nothing substantial jumping out, I request that we place those on file.
So moved.
Okay, and we did also receive a copy of an A&R report, which is given to us from time to time, just to let us know what matters have been released. I think basically the one that we see here is a project that did appear before us in the past. That was the old matter down on Plain Street, where the Hannaford building is turning over to the new Target store that we approved, and they have some approval not required under Mass General laws, which have been applied for and granted to. I believe we saw this when it came in with the site plan. So, any questions on those? If not, entertain a motion to place that on file as well.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I do see that we do have some general correspondences, and I think Aaron gave us a little handout tonight that was referred to in the local paper on the Hamilton Canal District.
yeah.
And Aaron, do you just want to go over this briefly with us, or do you have any questions on it? Just for our informational purposes? I know it was the picture, well, one of these pictures was in the local paper. I think it was the second one here, but
Yeah, this is mostly just to keep you guys up to date of what
I know there was a meeting last week that
Yeah,
made
this
reference
is
to in the paper.
Saturday.
This was the plan that they presented this Saturday. I wasn't there, but from my understanding, for the most part, there was quite a bit of support from the folks that were there about the project. And you can see on this illustrative plan, they've got locations for a parking garage that's in purple. A lot of retail on the ground floor to enliven the street, create a good active street, especially coming down from Broad. You can also see that the plans changed a little bit. Originally, it was a little bit more heavy on the residential, and they're now kind of changing the mix to be a little heavier on the commercial side, especially along Dutton Street and then off of Revere. But other than that, this has kind of been there was two options originally that was provided to the community, and this was the second one that the community really liked the most. And this iteration really is just kind of a refinement of that. So one thing that you may want to keep in mind, and I don't have an exact time, but May 1st, which I believe is a Thursday, there will be a zoning work group, a form-based zoning work group that the planning board is encouraged to attend. Obviously, you're going to be involved in the creating of the zoning code and how that moves forward. So there's going to be a work group on how that's going to be fleshed out. I'll have obviously more information on that later.
Mr. Chairman, could I just add to that? I did attend this meeting, and as Aaron said, obviously there was a lot of support for the people that were there, and as the paper said, there was somewhere around 100 people there. I just want to comment on a few things, because something that was pertinent to the project that the Dunkin' Donuts on Dutton Street, and they presented a traffic plan, and part of it was the redesign of that entire intersection, which we had, we had talked about,
Right.
the concern that was there, and that was encouraging. Still some issues, I think, with the Lord overpass, but I know they have some plans with that as well. To what Aaron was saying, I know I think that the scheduled meeting is April 24th. That's a Thursday, I think, from 6 to 9 for the code, for the form-based code working group meeting. I think that.
I think they changed it to May 1st.
Did they?
I'm pretty sure
Okay,
they changed
okay.
it. Yeah.
But I think that's where the planning board will come in to play, because I think very interesting, although I do have some questions about it, but is to really try to include the building design almost site by site as to the zoning code in order to really direct what happens there. But that's obviously some exciting things coming out of that. That's all I have to say, Mr. Chairman.
Those are good points, Jerry. I know basically when you said about the Dutton Street, and I know they also came out and said on that part of the plan would be what this new plan would be, and I think a lot of it will be also, now we're looking at what could be the new trial court there, with all that, with that building being there and the parking. I mean, from the paper, they want to put really the Superior Court in there, the District Court in there, the Juvenile Court in there. I know when they opened up the Fenton Center in Lawrence, they wanted to put the Juvenile Court in there, and they designed it to do so, and then they built it, they didn't have enough room for them, so the Juvenile Court, now, we're on another site in Lawrence, but hopefully they'll put them all in there. But I think that would be a big part of this whole area too, especially with where that location is with the traffic design. I mean, you put all those courthouses in one area, like in the one in Lawrence, they have a big parking garage right across the street from the Fenton Center. Then to right next to it, on the same side of the street, then across the street, gentleman there has a garage, which is flat land, which he has people paying to park in there. People do park on the street, but they're pretty strict with the meters down there, so most people do park in the garage. But the main thing, if you have a court that size, you do draw a lot of people for parking facility and the traffic as well.
One of the things that came out too, Mr. Chairman, at the meeting is they were trying to utilize parking under as many buildings as possible. So I think they were talking somewhere between 740 to 780 parking spaces
Underneath, huh?
underneath buildings, and that's without even they're proposing, I think, another parking garage in that area. But I just like the idea of using that. And
Yeah, that's a great idea. I mean, it's great when you come out of work after it's been snowing all day long, to just jump in the car and pull away. And obviously, if you use the land and use it properly, that does, then you can really put all these other commercial, residential areas in, because you have the more land. If you can do this and just stack it up, put the parking on the lower level, and then build above it. I mean, that's a good idea. I mean, I think that definitely could help work.
Just like to point out on the plan, so you can kind of see where in the traffic circulation, where those underground parking areas are going to be. For instance, for the residential, the buildings that are labeled 8, 9, and then for the commercial 16 and 15, there's a little purple rectangle, and that will be the entrance to those underground parking. So you can kind of see how that circulation is going to work out, and just how many of the buildings, in fact, are going to have parking inside. So absolutely, it's a great way of distributing parking throughout the site while maintaining a rather dense and active streetscape.
Because if this is going to work, you're going to need the parking for people to be able to get in and out of the sites.
And I also wanted to point out that this plan is certainly not its final iteration. This is essentially what they're going to file for the MIPA process. And what we can do is we can make sure that when they get through that, I can provide the board, gives you guys a chance to look at that and see what changes that the state's requiring, so you can see how this process starts to unfold and how that can feed into the whole the form-based code.
So basically, when we start seeing this will probably come in on different stages, you imagine, for us to look at it for site plan at different times?
I'm not exactly sure how the review's gonna work, but definitely for the zoning change, the first step is May 1st.
Okay.
And that's the time to really look in on the process.
And then after that, we will be involved with site plan review, obviously?
I would think so, yeah.
Yeah, and those could come in by different parcels?
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, from what I understand, and it's going to be, I think, a little bit new for all of us, I think part of what's being proposed is, and I obviously won't speak for George and Adam, but is to really make it so specific that a lot of this will be by right development.
Okay.
And that,
Oh, by the zoning,
so
okay.
it'll be,
I hear you.
I think our work's going to come into the zoning itself.
Zoning aspect instead of the
and
site plan
zoning
review?
aspect, Exactly.
So then if they meet the criteria, they don't have to come in for site plan?
Exactly, and
Oh,
then if there's a.
I'm in favor of that.
Yeah, and then if there's any kind of a waiver from that, or is what board do you want that to go to? Would it be more appropriate for that to come to the
So that's
planning
the zoning
board rather
board?
than the zoning board of appeals, or what's appropriate versus that?
Depending on what the relief may be?
Exactly.
Right,
Yeah,
okay.
exactly. So that's my understanding of it.
Oh, I see.
At
So,
this point.
okay, so obviously we've been informed of that when they do that zoning issue coming up, that we'd be
Absolutely,
present
yeah,
at it,
that's,
and
and
then
that's precisely why
and then
they
we'd
like the
get
board there
feedback
at
on those
that.
matters there?
Mhm. And I think Jerry's pretty much got it, but I think that's one of those things that where we're at, we're hammering out how exactly that happens. And absolutely, that's kind of the basis of the form-based code is that rather than regulating uses, we're regulating the form and the architecture of the building. Not so much the specific elements and design elements of the building, but the form more so. That we want to give flexibility in the uses while retaining the kind of design that's going to give us this active neighborhood,
So
urban
basically,
neighborhood. So-
basically try to allow the big picture and then see how the pieces fit in.
Yep.
And have them, make sure that they all fit into the puzzle so the design concept works throughout the whole site.
That's right. And that's also one of the reasons they want to have all this upfront meeting with the community to make sure that they're getting a neighborhood that the community wants.
Right. Especially, for it to work in somewhere this big, in this part of the city, for a big plan of this, obviously it's gonna have to be neighborhood friendly.
I think one of the biggest questions that will be fleshed out in the MIPA process is this intersection that they're proposing, where Fletcher and Jackson actually become. I think that's gonna be a big hurdle, and the access to this site is important. To make this project really work, it's gonna be the access and trying to.
Yeah, because you
so I
look at
think-
Thorndike Street going out that way, we can go down and pick up Route 3 and
Yep.
up to 495 to the connector, I mean. Right.
And there's some good things happening. I mean, just some points on this. They did a rough fiscal impact analysis, and upon build-out, they're looking at $3.7 million a year in new tax revenue. That's full build-out, but that's pretty, it's about 2 million square feet of building.
Okay, any further comments on this plan? Hearing none, anybody else have any other further general correspondences or any updates from any planning board members? Any further comments?
I have none.
If not, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion's made and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, we have adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Good night and happy St. Patrick's Day. You got this going, you got the other party coming in. Good moving.